This is an audio test for Community Access Television Services.
Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting of the Monroe County Council to order for Tuesday, April 11th. And we have some members present and some not. So I will call the roll, I believe, and we will start with Counselor Munson,
I am here.
Counselor Iverson,
Here.
Counselor Crossley, here, Counselor Deckard,
Here.
Counselor McKim,
Here.
and Counselor Hawk. Okay, Counselor Hawk is not here. And I do not, I'm checking Zoom just to be sure. Okay, great. All right. The next item is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And next is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions from tonight's agenda? Yes,
I'd like to move to add item 12B, aviation requests to create a new account line and to simultaneously amend the 2023 salary ordinance.
Second.
great. Are there any comments or questions on that addition? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote? Or can I do? Everyone who's present is present. All in favor of adding item 12B for the aviation department, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And the ayes have it. Are there any other additions or edits to our agenda? Okay. Sorry, just making a note. So now we have time for public comment. If there are any members of the public who would like to talk to us about items not on our agenda this evening, please make your way to the podium. If you're in the room, if you're on Zoom, please raise your hand or otherwise let us know. And we can make space for you. Is this Kristen?
Hello, my name is Kristen Terry, and I am here today on behalf of the Tobacco Free Coalition of Monroe County. I am just wanting to highlight the huge problem that tobacco use is among youth, specifically vaping. So currently we are seeing a vaping epidemic among our youth. Between 2016 and 2018, current use of e-cigarettes have nearly doubled among Hoosier youth. Since 2012, e-cigarette use among middle school and high school students has increased nearly fivefold. E-cigarettes remain the most used tobacco product among Indiana middle school and high school students in 2018, with those percents being 5.5% and 18.5% respectively. We do not have accurate data from 2020 due to COVID, and we are waiting on our data from 2022 that we just did this past fall. In Monroe County, we have gotten reports from school staff from both Richland, Bean Blossom, and Monroe County Community School Corporation that vaping is a major issue within the schools. And it's not just our older kids. We have reports of elementary kids as young as third graders who are vaping. While the data is still limited, there is more research emerging that proves that vaping is harmful for the user and for bystanders. There are studies that show that the amount of nicotine in e-cigarettes has increased over the last 10 years. We know that from these studies, that one pod used in an e-cigarette has the same amount of nicotine as a whole pack of cigarettes. We know that nicotine is harmful to a developing brain. It is a stimulant and it affects the brain the same way as if someone were to use methamphetamine. While nicotine is what is most commonly in vapes, we are also beginning to see cannabis in them as well in the vapes in the schools for those that do confiscate and drug test. Currently, the Tobacco Free Coalition is partnering with the Monroe County Health Department to work towards adding e-cigarettes to the county ordinance. It is already a part of the city ordinance, but it is not on the county. As community members, we must continue to be informed about the problems within our community to protect our youth. After all, they are the future of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Terry. That was a lot of information. I do have a question for you. Actually, you mentioned you are working to add e-cigarettes to the county or health ordinance.
Yes.
You working directly with the health department on that?
Yes.
Great. And then it'll go to the commissioners after you've put something together?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Right, I see no one. So we will move to item 5, which is department updates. We do have an update from Lori Kelly and in the health department, and perhaps Bree is going to speak to this. I don't know if she's on. No, I think it's you, Bree. But you're.
There's so many ways we can operate here. We have backups to our backup.
Okay. Good afternoon. I am actually here today on behalf of the health department. Last meeting, a deappropriation was approved that is no longer needed in the health department's futures clinic fund. This was actually put on or submitted to you an error, as there was a little bit of confusion as to the revenue in that fund, I think. It's a federal grant fund, so it gets the grant revenue, but it also gets clinic revenue. And I think that's the portion that was overlooked. So there actually is cash to support the appropriation as it currently stands. So this is actually a good thing. They're looking very, very closely and trying to clean up, and definitely don't want to over appropriate. So just a deeper look into this. We realize that it actually is okay as it is. Okay. Any questions with regard to that?
Okay, are there questions from council on this? Could you explain what action we may or may not need to take on this item?
I think I'll defer to legal, but probably just a note for the record, I imagine.
Okay, all right.
I think that suffices, but I will double check.
Okay, all right. Well, I assume that she'll come to us with the need if there's a need for an appropriation. Thank you. No other questions from council? Then it looks like we have an update from our auditor. Welcome.
On Zoom, Councilor Hawkeye. Thank you.
If you couldn't hear that because the mics are having problems, Councilor Hawks arrived for the record.
Good evening, counselors. How are you guys doing tonight? Hope everybody's doing great. It's beautiful weather. It's a great day. Great to have a democracy where we can actually participate in government together, correct? So that's awesome. Okay, so I have I guess maybe a little bit of bad news, but just a tiny bit. Hopefully you got some good news to follow it up with. So our plat book had spent a significant amount of money out of our plat book, which fund, which basically only exists to make sure that our plats and our parcels for the county are correct and taxation is dead on, right? That's the purpose of the fund. It is a non-reverting fund. It is has very strict statutory requirements, and we can only use it for exactly what the Indiana code says we can use it for. Well, we were doing great in that fund, and because interest rates were very, very low and houses were selling very, very fast. And so we built up a lot of cash, and I felt like a good use of that money would be to shore up the ability for us to protect our county option income tax, or what we call LIT, right? Local income tax. And the reason why is a law got passed just over a year ago regarding how our parcels had to be correct, or we could not collect LIT, because if your parcel lines were wrong and your section lines and division lines were different, they couldn't exactly tell where the money that they take from taxpayers from their paycheck exactly go. So they made basically a law that says that stuff has to be correct. It has to be right, or we will not give you LIT. Well, we have to have LIT to run our county. Now we don't call it county option income tax. We call it local income tax. We kind of group it all together. So the COIT, LOIT, all those other ones I used for years have all went away, and everything is just plain LIT. So I used the money. I went to you guys and I asked you guys, can I use the money that's in this account to fix our parcel layers, to make them correct? Because we have a lot of problems. We need to start to do this twofold ways. Twofold in that. The first one is we need a GIS parcel person, not a person to run the GIS, but a GIS parcel person, so that when we do plats and subdivisions and combinations, they are correct once we get it correct, once we get the GIS correct. Second, the GIS is incorrect substantially, and we really need to create a parcel fabric layer for our geographical information system, or a GIS system for the county, and start fresh with a layer that actually is correct based on our plats and what we've done in the past. So in order to do that, we sent out bids and said, well, won the bid. And it was covered by this fund that operates under me. And so I have some bad news for you, in that the fund is negative $453. But I have some good news for you. As of today, Monroe County, and I mean, as of actually this afternoon, Monroe County has a parcel fabric layer on its GIS. So bad news happened on the same day that kind of good news happened. So I'm happy to tell you about that. The parcel fabric currently reflects the data we have submitted to Sidwell on 11/10/22, so November 10th. As any new subdivisions or parcel changes since then has not been updated, we've been holding them while they get this uploaded, while this gets put in at the right datum points and on the Cartesian plane, exactly perpendicular, and and on all coordinates. With the parcel fabric layer, we'll be able to directly link any changes to our parcel lines, and these changes we haven't put in since November will be put in manually. They'll be manually updated, but these boundaries will have the specific document that created them, triggered the change, will be associated with them and will be linked to them, as well as see who made the change, what will help basically streamline all the indexing for those positions. And furthermore, any future subdivisions that we would have, or even splits or combinations, recorded with the county will more accurately reflect the surveys depicted on their plats, with each individual line and curve having its data recorded at the exact right coordinates, Cartesian coordinates, and each individual line or curvilinear line, because nothing is exactly perpendicular when you start talking contour lines. There's a lot of curvilinear expressions, and we could write a lot of equations to get that, but basically it's just easier to use surveyed points and plot those and let the software make the contour lines and make it correct. So previously you may have noticed that multiple parcels in our GIS had some misinformation. And in the same information actually, or conflicting information. So what we have tried to do is combine the parcels to retain the historic parcel data and make these boundaries correct. With all the fabric that we are now calling the fabric layer, how we've woven it together, we are basically saving our own history, the Monroe County history, building upon that history so that we'll be able to reflect all the combined parcels as a single, one basically single parcel for viewing. This is what Monroe County actually looks like, right? Once we get there, once we get it all updated, we get everything loaded, then this GIS person will make sure that we don't deviate and that all the information is correct. And if I live at 3313 Jordan Court, but I also own 3309 Jordan Court, that my salary gets paid under 3313 Jordan Court. And, you know, my sons or whoever's living in the house next door gets paid under that exact address. Does that make sense? So that we know that my money gets sent to Van Buren Township. If I get annexed into the city, which I have, that money goes into the city. So here's all my data for my exact where I live, and it's going to the exact right taxation so that they don't only get my property tax correct, but they also get my lit correct, right? And that the public safety lit is correct. The lit for all the different 4 pieces of lit that we have is correct. So we're building this history for public viewing and for correctness. And so then when the state does do their checks, which they're going to do the checks to make sure it's right, we will pass that test. We'll pass that litmus test. Yes, our lit is correct based on this GIS information. This will assist property owners in knowing that their properties are correct in the GIS, as well as making sure if they want one combined tax bill, we can say, like if I wanted my 2 properties combined, they could be combined into one tax bill. Right now I don't have that done, but I could do that so that you don't accidentally miss a tax bill if you have 400 properties or 300 properties. Does that make any sense? So what I'm asking for is, I think this was a great use of this money. What I'm asking for is to subsidize why we've overrun this account, which is we're not selling as many houses. The interest rates went up. So we don't have this giant real estate market. I would like to subsidize out of my other account, which is the auditors ineligible. I would like to subsidize this account to pay for this GIS person until the market catches up with the expense. Knowing that I sort of overran it myself by asking to pay for this parcel project, this contract. So I would like to eat this myself and revisit it at budget time so that there's no negative effect to the general fund in the year 2023. So I hope you guys have support. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Question?
Sorry, then this is more about the results of the project. I mean, I have no problem with paying for it out of ineligible deduction rather than plat book, but so at what point will the new parcel lines be available in the public GIS, or are they already there?
Well, I believe it's on there as of this afternoon. However, it's only updated to October 11th or not till November 11th. And as we hand put each piece in, it will be updated correctly. And the GIS person, who's Patrick Ellis, who wrote those notes, or he kind of listed out notes, I added some stuff, obviously. As he works with the changes that have been made since then, he will work on those first. And then once we get caught up, it will be absolutely in real time. And he will literally go through each parcel and make sure those lines are correct. So if you get on GIS and you see that your lot lines are not not exactly where your property lines are, they will be fixed.
Thank you.
So, and I do want to point out, there's multiple layers to the GIS. Our business as the auditors, that we're the statutory holder of the parcels. So we only deal with the parcel and taxation level. That's the only one.
Excellent.
My question was going to be, how does this differ than working with our GIS coordinator in the surveyor's department? But you just answered that question. So thank you.
Yes, there's so much more to GIS than just this. This is only taxation. And getting taxation correct so that nobody overpays or nobody underpays.
And it's a statutory requirement that
Yes,
we
it is.
get this lined up, right? Are there other questions? Yes.
I just had a clarification question. So if I'm looking at Monroe County GIS, I will see, and I see a line that's kind of doing one of those to the sides I know is not right. You're saying that would be fixed as a result of this?
And we will do that in our office only on the parcel fabric layer. And any new surveys that come out with plots, or plats, whichever you want to call it, people call it the same thing. It's virtually is the same thing. Or combinations or splits. Like if you just want to split, say you have 20 acres and you're splitting it among 3 family members and you get your 5 acres and you're giving them the other 3 people 5 more acres. All that will be done in our office in real time.
Thank you.
So, oh, okay, go ahead. No, you can.
So Kathy, thank you for this presentation. I had the good fortune of working with our GIS coordinator in the surveyor's office earlier this year when the legislature was considering a bill that would provide payment in lieu of property taxes for parcels owned by the state rather than privately or by other entities. And so we looked at what properties there were that were actually owned by the state. And there was a lot of confusion and misinformation. And this is important because eventually the state will need to reconsider this issue.
Well, it's very important in this county because we have a lot of
Very.
state property around the lake.
Not
So-
just the lake, Morgan Monroe State
Woods and-
Forest,
Yes.
Yellowwood,
everything.
et cetera.
So if they end up paying per square acre, it's very important for that GIS to be correct. Or if they give us taxation offset, in
Absolutely.
other words, we want to make sure that we never rip Monroe County off, that our taxpayers are not
Exactly.
overtaxed because our GIS was not correct.
Right. So additionally, there is services that we provide to the state for road maintenance, et cetera. And we need to know what we're doing and be able to communicate with the state about this. So I'm very glad that this is going on.
Well, it's not just an interesting project. The surveyor and the GIS person and even TSD, we have all worked very, very closely to make this a very successful project.
Great.
And I have nothing but amazing things to say about everybody that participated.
Great,
It's been great.
thanks. Thank you.
So, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Sorry, I keep trying. No, go ahead.
Of course, I'm excited every time Monroe County can move forward with new projects. But I wanted to address the fiscal side of this. I see that you're suggesting that we could take it out of the unappropriated funds. So I have concern about that because we start dipping into that and that's not the normal way
No,
we would do things.
That's not what she said.
It's okay.
Okay, so what I'm saying is,
I'm sorry,
when-
what did you
2
say?
years ago, when I told you this was coming down the pike, I said, I want to fund this out of the cash that we have in the auditor's office. Money we worked really hard to raise, right? So now that plat book is depleted, we want to use auditors ineligible to finish the expense of this so that it was at no cost to the taxpayer other than fees
Okay,
for transferring property.
okay. I apologize.
That's okay.
I thought I heard you say unappropriated funds. I was going to say, I don't believe we would
Ineligible, yes.
normally do that. Anyway, I'm excited about the project and I think.
It is pretty exciting. It's great that it's been at no cost to the taxpayers.
Right, and.
Something to be
it's
proud of
exciting
for our
when we
county.
Move ahead and the other counties are trying to catch up with us.
Are there other questions from council? I just wanted to confirm that you will come back to us then at our next meeting with a request.
Good point. What I'm going to ask you for, and I think Bree and I are deciding if it's going to be 25,000 or exactly what we're going to ask is if we can duplicate the GIS person's work in this other fund so that as money comes into this fund, We will use the money specifically like it's supposed to be used for a plat book. If we do not have enough to cover his salary, we'll switch him to auditors and eligible. So again, county general will not take a hit. We'll revisit all this and the measurements of these different matrices that we're looking at budget time.
Okay, so we can get this all worked out, the details of it set up next meeting. Great. All right, thank you. Are there any other departments who would like to provide an update at this time, either online or in person? All right. Okay, seeing none, then we are at council liaison updates. And do any council members have updates for us? We're going to start down here at this end. Counselor Hawk, and we'll just work our way this way.
I guess maybe it's just a council. I'm not the liaison, but I'm on the Indiana County Council Legislative Association. And big things happened at the state again today. So I'm just saying, everybody needs to watch. It's not finalized yet, but it looks as if some big changes are going to be made having to do with our food and beverage tax. And what is in the legislation right now, if it doesn't get changed, is that the portion, when we adopted it, it set up the advisory council, and it said that neither the city nor the county or the legislative bodies could spend without the authority to spend from the advisory council. And they took that portion off. It said that they could come and ask for advice, but advice is worth exactly what you pay for it. There's no payment made there. So I think if anybody's interested in that, you might want to just take a look at it. The other thing is that if it wasn't real clear, but to the city and the county both had to put together a budget, how they plan to spend the money, and they added some things there, how the money could be spent. And so therefore, because the city would not have to come to the advisory council to get permission to spend, they go ahead and put together their budget for the following year. And so could the county, for whatever portion our money is, and then if it's not spent out by a certain time, and it just said if they don't spend the money, it doesn't say spend it all, it doesn't say what portion, whatever. So that was rather confusing. But that if it wasn't spent out, both the city and county spending it out, then the tax would go away, just go away.
And the balance would have to be given back to the
Well,
taxing units.
they would no longer, when I say the tax, I'm talking about the people paying the tax, that they would no longer be paying the tax. But these balances will still be sitting there. And the balances sitting there will not be distributed like 90% to the city and the way it was. It looks like it's going to be what's being proposed, that it'll be tied more to, it sounded like more like the certified share distribution, sort of like, I mean, it was tied to your footprint of your tax. I'm sorry, I cannot hear you.
No, I'm just going, wow. Go ahead, finish, please.
Right, so.
She just was remarking that that's a big deal.
Do I think it's a big deal?
She thinks it is.
I think
it's a very big deal.
it's millions and billions of dollars. It's
Yes.
a big deal. Now, why did we have this problem? We brought it on ourselves. Because people, and I agree, we should not be paying tax for something that we get nothing for. We've been sitting here getting nothing for it. So this may just be the push to get together and get something done. Now, the leader of the Tax and Fiscal Committee spoke with Senator Yoder and said that he would welcome an amendment. But that had better be, he made it pretty clear. We've got to get moving. And somebody else on the committee even said, it looks like Monroe County needs a dad to tell them what to do. Now And really, you really could hardly find fault with these people because they're tired of fixing Monroe County's problems and we make our own. But I just think we need to. I would have told you this was coming up, but it was kind of a shock. And I was over watching Ways and Means Committee, thought, oh, I better go see what's going on tax and fiscal, and they'd already started the debate. So I missed most of it. Okay, so now you looked at it. What have I missed?
Well, I mean, I've watched the whole thing as it happened.
See you there.
And actually Commissioner Givens was up there testifying today.
But who is Richard? Is that Rick Cochran?
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
because you said with Richard, I
Yeah.
thought, well, what's the
Yeah.
building person? Okay,
no, they were both up there testifying against it. And I have to say, I first learned about it early this morning. And so, but the more but after listening to the debate and, and reading the law in more detail, I mean, really, what it just does is lights a fire under both sides.
well,
And
they
it's like,
just.
get it done,
We
yeah,
need to.
get it done and get her done. And the get her done date is April 1st, 2024,
Yeah.
to actually get the money spent. That's already been collected, to come up with a plan by the end of the year, and then actually spend the money according to that plan, and then continue to submit these reports every year. So really, it's just, it just lights a fire in it and says, get it done. And so Senator Yoder did say that she was going to try to submit an amendment to maybe adjust the timeline. But it sounded like at least the chair was pretty firm on wanting to bring Monroe County back into
Well,
the fold in terms of.
He's heard from everyone. We're tired of paying a tax and getting nothing for it and setting there millions of dollars not providing any public service. Now, I wasn't in favor of the tax to begin with, but once you get something going, then you follow the rules and you get moving, and we just simply didn't get moving. But I'm concerned about that April 2024 because we'll have a new mayor.
Right, I think the thought is that that's probably a little too aggressive, but.
Well, I don't
that's-
know that you've got a new mayor and you've got some new city council people, and they've got until April to get it done.
Yeah, but there's also another clause in there that adds quality of life purposes as a allowable expenditure. So which I think makes some of the things on the county side we've been wanting to do. I just makes it clearer that those are legitimate, rather than having to even tangentially tie them to the convention center and tourism. It actually allows, for example, trails or or soccer fields or other things like that are, I think, more clearly quality of life related to be allowed. So there's some good and some bad. But I at first I was pretty shocked when I read it, but after listening to the debate and reading it in more detail, I can see the motivation.
Here's something I really did not like about
I
it.
should already have.
It didn't say that the city couldn't get another food and beverage tax. It said the county couldn't. Now, we put this in place, 90% of which is going to the city. And this has been written in such a way that the county will not be able to have our own food and beverage tax with our own revenue coming in. And the city could. Now, they couldn't pass it for out in the county, but then how does it tie into the innkeeper's tax? And they rely on the innkeeper's tax for operations. So I think this is not as simple as, well, just sit down and do it. Anyway, it's been an exciting time at my household today.
I appreciate the update. Thank you. Councilor McKim.
Before we move on, can we just clarify that's House Bill 1499 for people watching at home?
Thank you.
For all three people watching at home, yes. Thank you.
I mean,
that's sweet.
Well, and also, if anybody has a clear view of House Bill 1006, and that's the mental health for people who might be incarcerated, the fiscal note on that, and I've not heard this body talking about, but that's what, we're the fiscal body. And it says on there makes it pretty clear that if we should need extra dollars having tied to how our insurance was, that the counties would have the option of reducing the benefits to the employees. That's what it says. Read it. Read
Oh,
it, Peter.
I did see
It says
that.
reducing the.
I'm on it,
benefits or
Marty.
Raising the cost to the employees. I find that unacceptable that it should be Monroe County government employees that would have to help foot the bill for this. Now, if I am reading this wrong, I hope you'll research it and let me know. I try not to be wrong, but I am once in a while. I got a dog. I should have done that. So.
All right, thanks. Counselor McKim.
Some important climate action news here from the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District. Back in April of 2022, the district partnered with City of Bloomington Utilities to commission a detailed feasibility study to assist CBU in assessing the merits of creating a resource recovery program. And that program would include wastewater treatment plant improvements, anaerobic digestion, biosolids reuse, and biogas utilization facilities. The goals are to reduce or eliminate net greenhouse gas emissions from the Dillman Road wastewater operation, which includes processing solids from Blucher Pool Plant as well in a fiscally feasible manner, and as well as to actually reduce the amount of those biosolids going to landfill. And the results of the study are intriguing. In particular, the study concluded that an anaerobic digester and other improvements of the Dillman Road wastewater treatment could actually be cost neutral under some scenarios. And even under those that aren't cost neutral, the costs of those investments would be less than others that would achieve the same carbon reduction goals. The first opportunity for the public to see the results of the study will be this Thursday evening at the meeting of the Solid Waste District Board of Directors, where the consultants will be present, at least by Zoom. The meeting will be at 4 p.m. here in this room on Thursday, April 13th, and will also be available on Zoom. CBU is also going to conduct a meeting that's more oriented towards the general public later this month at a date to be determined. And once that date is known, we'll make it sure to distribute it widely. But if you're really interested, come or view the district board meeting on Thursday for a first look at the conclusions of this very exciting study.
Thank you. Any other liaison updates to my right? No? Okay, Bill, I'm gonna start and come this way. Counselor Munson.
I did not get to hear the testimony today about the food and beverage tax legislation. I was dealing with other tax matters called my own income taxes.
Yes.
And I think it's very, very amusing that somebody said they needed a dad telling them what to do. Certainly, they never listened to the mom because I think I did my best since 2017 to help move this convention center expansion forward. And I'm very worried about the April 2024 deadline, because even with an agreeable group of people from the city and county working together, it may be very difficult to get bonding in place for the development of this expansion project. And that's just something to do with the nature of arranging the finances.
Yeah.
I think I'm hopeful that Senator Yoder can affect some sort of date change on this for Monroe County. Okay.
Counselor Iverson.
Thank you, Madam President. I have 3 exciting things to share. Of course, I always think what I say is exciting, but we'll see what you all think. The first is that our Community Justice Response Committee will meet this Monday in this room. We will be having design firm DLZ give a presentation, and I encourage everyone to go onto the CJRC website and look at the proposal, especially on page 11, where they offer a suggested timeline for how they see this process playing out. I found that helpful and useful to think about the ways that we are going to be constructing a new facility. And I encourage you all to attend this presentation and to learn as well. The second item that I want to share is that the Monroe County Environmental Commission will meet this Thursday at 5:30 p.m. in this very room. Of note, we are moving forward with our partnership with the Indiana University Environmental Resilience Institute and their McKinney Fellows Program. We are really excited about this, and we are on the cusp of sharing even more information with you. Make sure to attend that meeting either in person or virtually. And then the last thing I wanted to share is that the Substance Use Disorder Advisory Commission will meet Friday at noon. That's next Friday, not this Friday, at noon in this space. And let me share my screen just real quick. I want to share a quick chart. I think, can you all see this? This chart is a recording from our coroner of drug overdose deaths in our county from the year 2018 to the year 2022. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. We have a problem on our hands. We've known that this has been a problem for a while, but we now have this data to indicate this. If this bothers you, and I think it should, I encourage you to start attending the Substance Use Disorder Advisory Commission. We certainly could use your input on this community-wide problem as we look forward to creating solutions to these things, which include harm reduction. We're one of the only communities that do that, as well as working with our state partners on things like investigating what House Bill 1006 could offer. So with that, I'll conclude.
Thank you. Councilor Crossley.
Thank you. And that was interesting. So there you go.
Yeah.
So I sit on the Community Corrections Advisory Board, and this board meets quarterly. We had our meeting yesterday, April 10th. And just a couple of key points that I thought were interesting that we all should know with community corrections and our probation department. We had at least three recent resignations. But with that being said, we also had 3 recent new hires. So we're definitely, the departments are trying their best to try to retain as much as we can. And one big thing that was discussed yesterday that we had said is that the Justice Partners Grant was awarded for $60,000. And we also just was discussed yesterday that we will have 1 more year of that funding. So we will have that again for another year. And of course, a lot of folks know that that funding was used for the New Beginnings program in our jail, but that was cut. That program was cut because of funding. And so people are in talks of trying to restart that program again. So I just thought it was important for me to discuss that. And the next meeting will be August 28th at 5 o'clock.
Thank you. A lot of amazing work going on between meetings.
I would like very much to have a discussion with you about that. I would have liked to have been heard what was going on at that meeting. When I looked at the agenda, we are in District 5 for the parole area, and that's several different counties. And it does make you wonder if all of the people coming in from parole from all the counties, that they're all coming here because they can be assigned to attend so many classes and so forth, which we offer, and the drug treatment courts and so forth. And maybe the other counties don't, but that may also be one of the reasons why we continue to have more people put in our jail because breaking the rules. So that's something I thought was interesting, but they might or might not discuss that at the meeting, but it was part of the agenda.
Yeah, it wasn't. But yeah, I'm more than happy to talk with you about it.
Okay, I just have one quick half of an update. It's sort of a semi-update. It's an inkling of an update. You may have heard that recently the communities of Nashville and Columbus and Bloomington pledged to work together regionally on Project 46, which is an initiative to combat the impacts of our changing climate and increase community resilience. And in speaking with the city administration and with our commissioners, we're looking into how we can join that effort and support that work. These problems need to be addressed at a larger scale than any of one body can really do. So we're looking at how we can amplify our efforts by working together. So hopefully in the next few weeks, I think the endorsement of a resolution is on the city council's agenda for tomorrow evening. And I'd like for us to look at following their lead and joining in with them with a commitment of support relatively soon. And that is all I have for liaison updates. I believe that brings us to item 7, and we can start having some formal business here. This is with the Monroe County Public Library.
Council, I move to approve the Monroe County Public Library's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 0061 Rainy Day in the amount of $4 million in the capital category.
Second.
And Mr. Carson, welcome and come on up to the podium. Would you like to give us a little background just so everybody here on the
Certainly,
same page? Thanks.
And so what I thought I would do, if it's okay, is talk about both of these additional appropriation requests and open with sort of a little bit of an explanation about both. So MCPL is requesting additional appropriations for fiscal year 2023. These funds would be used for 2 specific purposes. The first, as you just referenced, is $4 million from the library's rainy day fund, which has been accumulated over time to supplement the Southwest Branch construction project. The second request is for $613,000 from the library's general fund. This is related to the DLGF decision not to approve the library's fiscal year 2023 operating budget. This request is to restore operating fund spending levels to what the library had originally budgeted for 2023. The rainy day fund request is a long anticipated piece of our overall branch construction budget. The general fund request, however, reflects an error on our part, and we would like to describe. In brief, we calculated the proposed 2023 operating budget by starting with the previous year's adopted budget and increasing it by the coming year's growth quotient of 5%. After review and adoption by our Board of Trustees and submitting the budget, our DLGF representatives noted a discrepancy of $1,832 between the library spending total and the DLGF calculated budget spending total. This discrepancy was due to an adjustment to the 2022 adopted budget, which we neglected to factor into our calculations at the start of adopting this budget last October. The DLGF would not allow the library to make a final budget adjustment to comply with the 5% increase limit, and so we were awarded the 2022 total budget amount instead. And if I may, I'd like to invite our Finance Director, Gary Lettler, to the podium to share a few more details about this and to help answer some of your questions. Here.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. So no one likes learning a lesson the hard way, but we certainly have with last year's budget process. As Greer said, when calculating the total spending budget for 2023, the DLGF adjustment made after the budget was adopted in October was not included. It's not unusual for the DLGF to make final budget adjustments, and we thought this $1,800 discrepancy could be corrected with a final adjustment. But to our surprise, no final adjustment was allowed. After we got the bad news, we notified the library board and the county council that we had a problem. And this additional appropriation request would be coming for approval. In past years, there has been coordination with our DLGF field rep to provide a review of the budget information that we enter into the Gateway reporting system. That review process didn't happen last year. Going forward in July, when we have completed the entry of our budget into Gateway, I will be initiating the coordination of the review by the DLGF to catch any concerns early enough to correct them. Looking ahead to financial projections and operations for the rest of this year, the branch project will not be impacted. Those funds are in the bank and allocated in a separate fund for the project. Operating and debt fund revenue from the tax levy will be about $350,000 less than expected in 2023. Revenue increases in investment income and LIT, local income tax revenue, are expected to make up for most of the $350,000 reduction. Also, the projected 2023 operating cost will be less than expected because the new branch-related cost increases were estimated and budgeted based on a full year of operation of the branch. At this point, it looks like we should have an operating surplus this year of around $100,000. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, since the motion that was read was just for the rainy day.
Yes.
Our questions should stay on that one for right now, and then we'll move to ask questions about the other one. I know they're related and that kind of thing, but generally speaking. So we'll start to my left. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm having a little trouble with this because they are so related.
Okay,
Okay, could we possibly change that plan and talk about them together? Because
oh,
when I looked at Ms. Gregory's memo, that made me think that
right.
we should talk about them together.
I asked.
And possibly it might be helpful if
Yeah,
her presentation was made, so we would know the right questions to ask.
okay. So,
Sorry.
we'll hear from Ms. Gregory to provide some information that from the auditor's office perspective. And is there a need to amend the motion to keep discussion going? Are we good? All right, we're good. Okay.
Okay, so I sent an email just with my findings after doing a little research today. I just pulled information off the Public Gateway site, just so I could see the ending balance for 12/31 of 22. And then, the revenue, the levy, and then the estimated miscellaneous revenue. I just took the certified information. And that was the information I provided you, just so you could kind of see the overall picture. Since I had the opportunity to speak with the library representatives, and there was a $1.2 million transfer from the general fund to rainy day. So that the rainy day appropriation is supported. And then it looks like, and please correct me, the general fund balance will be, I guess, close to $1 million, like the
After the rainy day transfer, the general fund or the operating fund balance was about 1.8 million.
Your microphone died. Thank you. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to Counselor Munson. Do you have any questions or comments?
Well, I think that addressed my immediate concerns because I just knew we couldn't be considering appropriation for funds that weren't there. And So this is up to the minute accounting for us,
Just in time
just in
accounting.
time. And I don't have any further questions.
Okay, Counselor Iverson?
My question, since we're talking about the Southwest branch and its construction is, you know, the last time I heard an update was that things were going smoothly, we were on schedule. Is that still the case?
Greer works more with that project than I, so I'll let him speak to that.
Sure, yeah.
Sure, I am happy to say is very much the case. We are on track to open on June 9th as planned, and I see no reason to have to extend that date whatsoever. We did build some time, a little bit of a cushion in between substantial completion, which is scheduled for 2 weeks from Friday, and our opening date of Friday, June 9th, knowing that there are some final things that could go awry, but the big pieces, particularly the rock excavation and some of the need to reroute some of the infrastructure and so on has long been taken care of. So we're about 90% done within the building and maybe 75 to 80% done outside of landscaping. So we are very confident that we'll be opening on June 9th as planned.
Excellent. I think the public would like to hear that this issue that's before us today will in no way
Correct.
impact the opening date of this,
That is correct.
what is sure to be a beloved space.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
correct.
Thanks. Question? Counselor Deckard?
You may have to jog my memory, but as I recall throughout the discussions on this library, the use and the library's diligence in setting up these rainy day funds has been pretty well discussed and documented over the, I recall your predecessor discussing it,
Right.
we talking about it, et cetera. It might.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
I don't know. Gary, do you know how many years we've been accumulating surplus funds for rainy day? Might be good to share too.
The first time that we did a bond request, a general obligation bond, a 3-year bond, we had projections for surplus for several years. And at that time, we said these surpluses will be accumulated over time for the purpose of service expansion. So in 2012, I could see that we did have the capability to build funds over time. And that's when we started.
And I want to make sure that the light of that and all this gets put out there. A lot of good causes come up in all those times, but the library kind of had a vision for that. And that's impressive over that period of time. Thank you very much.
Counselor McKim?
Thanks. So just to make sure I understood the numbers correctly, the amount of levy that the error cost you was about $350,000.
Correct.
Is that right? And then just to make kind of clear to the public, although the library lost $350,000 on this, the taxpayers saved that. So it wasn't like money that was flushed down the toilet. They kind of left money on the table, but that money was kept in taxpayers' pockets. So I just kind of want to explain what the consequence of the error is. Then the second comment, I guess I just want to make in general, and this is in response to Counselor disagreeing slightly with a comment that I thought Counselor Munson made. We can certainly appropriate more money than is in a fund, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is there. You need both appropriation and cash just to be able to actually spend the money. And it's perfectly legitimate to appropriate more money than is currently in a fund. They just can't spend it until they actually have the cash in there.
Okay.
So even if this balance that we had received had been correct, I'd be perfectly comfortable appropriating the $4 million because they wouldn't be able to spend it unless they had it. But as it turns out, you have it anyway, because you've already made the transfer. So that comment, this was just kind of more of a philosophical point, I think.
And to be clear, when we pass a couple of things here, we know in order to spend money, you have to have the appropriation, the authority to spend, and you have to have the cash on hand right then to spend it.
Spend it, yes.
So you have to have that. And so what we have to also recognize is that the state wants this, because it's an additional appropriation, so that'll go to the state, and the state will look at it, and we don't want the state to deny this. And that's the reason why I asked the auditor's office to do the research on this, because I wanted to make sure that when this goes through, we don't have any hiccups at the state level. And the reason why this is so, a couple things, yes, indeed, you're right. The taxpayers didn't have to pay that extra however many $1,000. And they're going to see that because everybody's getting their tax bills right now. And when you look down on your list of tax bills, you're going to see how much the school tax went up, huge. And people think it's the county doing this. No, the school did that because they did the referendum with a rate control fund. So the rate times a lot higher assessed value brings in. Everybody's going to pay a lot more taxes for that. With the library, and I can understand why they will not be an understanding about if you put in your budget more than what would be allowed. The county does that all the time, knowing that the state's going to cut it back down to where we're supposed to be. So in order to make sure we've captured as much as we can, we put it up higher. That's because we're an elected body. Library board cannot do that. They're not an elected body. And so the legislation says if they can't even go over 1 penny more in there, and it is not with the levy, but it is tied to the growth quotient. So all of it comes together, and we'll work together and fix it. But boy, I know that you would like to have that $300,000, but you know, I think you're going to see an increase in your income tax revenue this year. So
Yes, we are.
and because once the levy rates and so forth was set, once that all sets out and these taxes start coming in and the assessed values went up, I think we're going to see a lot of additional dollars coming in. Poor folks at home are not happy about it. They love the library. Nobody wants to pay taxes.
Yes, well, are there any more questions or comments? Yes.
Say that you guys have the Ellsworth project. If you right, you guys are putting around on the leftover money. We will be seeing money for the big projects. And I mean, some of the asked that we're getting some of that money. I wanted to say that I thought you were very diligent in, you know, purchasing that on for future projects. And I do believe that was going to see money start with that.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there any public comment on the item at hand, which is the appropriation from the rainy day fund? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please? Neither was Kathy's mic was not working either.
Counselor Hawk.
That's you, yes.
Calling me, yes?
Yes, Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley. Yes. Counselor Iverson.
Yes.
Counselor Munson.
Yeah.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you.
Did we make it clear that this doesn't mean that the taxpayers are going to pay an additional tax? Just because we voted?
Good thing to clarify.
Yeah, I thought, I'm not sure we covered that. They're spending money they already have, that the taxpayers have already paid. They're not going to get a higher tax bill because.
Yes. Go ahead with the item B.
Council, I move to approve the Monroe County Public Library's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 0101 General Fund in the amount of $613,000 in the personnel category.
Second.
So we've already heard explanation about this. Are there specific other questions from council? Okay, seeing none, is there any public comment on this motion? Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Munson,
Yeah. Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Now we are at item 8 from the Highway Department.
Council, I move to approve the Highway Department's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 1135-0000 cumulative bridge in the amount of $150,000 in the supplies category.
Second.
Welcome, Ms. Ridge.
Good evening. When we set up our 2023 budget, we had changed some lines around in our Cume Bridge fund. We used to have a line called Stone. We have since changed it to be named Backfill Pavement Repair. When we did that, we did not realize that we did not appropriate the money we used to have in gravel into the new backfill line, which was $150,000 is what we used to appropriate each year. So we're asking to add those funds to the backfill and pavement repair line that used to exist in gravel.
Makes sense to me. Are there any questions? Okay. Then is there any public comment on this additional appropriation request? Seeing none, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes.
Counselor Munson is not present. Motion passed 6-1 or 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now have item 9 from the Youth Services Bureau.
Council, I move to approve the Youth Service Bureau's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 9111-9624 1503 YSB grant in the amount of $41,280 in the personnel category.
Second.
Good evening, counselors. My name is Vanessa Schmidt. I'm the Deputy Director over at YSB. I'm just here to request approval of the IYSA grant. It's already been awarded to us, but this fiscal year will start in July of 2023 and run to the end of June of 2024. This funding is used to supplement our direct care staff and half of a case manager salary.
All right. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Do you have any questions to my left? And to my right, are there any questions or comments? It seems pretty straightforward. Is there any public comment on this item? And seeing none, could we have another roll call vote, please?
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Munson is not present. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. And thanks again for being
Thanks.
here. We are now at item 10 from the Sheriff's Office.
Council, I move to approve the sheriff office's request for additional appropriations in Fund 8103-0000 operational pullover grant in the amount of $20,602.75 in the personnel category.
Second.
And Ms. Gregory is going to talk to us about this request.
Okay, I'm stepping in for the Sheriff's Department tonight as this is just a housekeeping item. So this grant is a little strange as we don't know the amount we're going to receive in advance. It's actually the city's grant and we receive a portion of it. So we submit a claim for reimbursement and we're not certain if we'll get the entire amount claimed or a portion of that or how that will work. So in the past, this used to be appropriated like by estimating, which it wasn't exactly best practice because we, could get ourselves into a little bit of trouble that way. So moving forward until a reimbursement is received, we're not going to appropriate. So this is actually just to kind of zero things out during the grant cycle. And then moving forward, as cash is actually received, they will come to council for appropriations and we'll make adjustments at that point. So any questions? And I also know that the legal department is working toward an interlocal, so things will be maybe a little bit more clear in the future as well.
And what is the grant cycle? Do you happen to know?
I didn't note that. I think it's through July.
It's from September to October.
That's right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Other questions on this item to my right? Counselor McKenna.
So I'm still trying to understand this. Sorry. So wait, what is the balance in this fund right now? Do we have a negative balance or is this?
I believe there's a negative appropriation and a positive cash balance. So this will bring the appropriation and just will even everything out. And then we'll start fresh when there's a cash balance again, we'll appropriate that balance.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
All right. Thank you.
Other questions to my right? To my left? Okay. And we are working on an interlocal agreement, Ms. Gregory said, with the city.
Possibly.
Okay.
I am going to meet with Sergeant Dana Cole, who's the who handles the grant for Bloomington Police Department. And then based on the information I gained from that meeting, I'm going to talk to city legal. What this grant is, it's for Operation Pullover, and it's a $35,000 grant. And the grant is to be shared between BPD, the Sheriff's Department, IU, and Ellettsville. And so all of them are to share $35,000, but from the way this is working currently, no one knows what chunk or piece of that $35,000 the other person is getting.
Sounds like a backwards way to do things a little bit, but okay.
In looking at what's in the fund right now, I don't believe, and Ms. Gregory can correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a $20,000 cash balance in there. We've received, I think, $6,000 or $7,000 in reimbursement. Is that correct?
I'll have to look. I don't have the information in front of me, but I can get that.
So we're, go ahead. Uh-oh. Okay, so we have no mics.
I'm sorry.
Check, check.
There's nothing now.
My work? No.
The
Yep.
mics seem to be picking up for Zoom, but they are not. Oh, yes, they are.
check,
Now we're back in the
check.
room. Okay.
I can pull the information, but this is for the grant cycle. So some was already expended, if that makes sense, in 2022. So this is to appropriate for the grant cycle to bring us even at that point.
Okay.
So if I pull the information and send it to you, it will make sense. Right.
Right. Okay, a serious question. Okay, we had one question from Councilor Crossley, and then we'll go this way.
Yeah. So I think this is, my question would be for Ms. King. Did you say that is Operation Pullover?
Sorry, there's a person here. The grant is called the CHIRP grant. It comes from the National Highway Safety Traffic something, the acronym that I can't remember the rest of. But it is used for Operation Pullover and OWI enforcement, as well as I believe it is part of the Click It or Ticket campaign. So OWIs and seatbelt.
Okay. And so, okay. I think that explained what Operation Pullover is. Okay. I just thought that was funny. Okay.
Yes, unfortunate name, really. Question from this end.
You're
Yes, Counselor Hogg.
Well, if they've already worked the overtime, I'm just trying to figure out when have they worked the overtime? Because we can't say, oh, well, we'll pay you whenever. So
Right.
we're going to have to pay them and then move the rent. Okay, you got this worked out.
Yes, everybody has been paid appropriately. So it was either paid from another budget and we're correcting it into this fund because we have the availability of cash. This is just, yes.
Now it's all clear.
So this is again on a grant cycle rather than like, a yearly cycle. So some of the expenses were from 2022 and some will be from 2023. It lapse years. So I'll, just so you can all kind of see it, maybe easier to visualize, I will send the county council the 2022 information in 2023, so you can see it all together.
But you're rejournaling expenses that have already been incurred and paid.
We're appropriating appropriately for the grant cycle.
I just want to make sure people got paid.
Sounds like that's already.
And this is why we did so on our audit.
Yeah, that's. So my question is similar. I mean, I know that people were already paid. But the idea is in going forward, perhaps would be that they would be paid out of the overtime line.
From another fund. And then when there is funding available in this fund, when we actually have the cash, we can make corrections within
So
this.
then you would just move it over
Exactly, we
to
can
reimburse
correct
yourself.
the expenses to this fund then. But it's just, even though it's a little more work, behind the scenes, then it just keeps this fund in good standing and it's easier that way to track and account for.
Okay,
Because at this point, we don't know the grant revenue that we'll receive ahead of time.
well, I guess I will look at it as a happy, lucky surprise. Are there any other questions? Good luck working out how it moves forward. Do you have a question or a comment?
I say they should be separate, but I want to really meticulously try. So for this specific purpose. That makes sense.
Yes.
Regular duty for this purpose.
The grant is very specific on what qualifies as overtime and how it's to be calculated.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that I want to look at into doing the interlocal is if our proposed plan moving forward is allowable under the grant, because I want to make sure that if we're doing a payroll correction, that we're still providing BPD, who basically facilitates the grant, with all the documentation that they need for that grant.
Right, okay. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes,
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson.
Yes.
Counselor Munson.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
motion passes unanimously.
thank you. And now we are at item 11 from our Emergency Management Department.
Council, I move to approve the Emergency Management Department's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 81450000 Emergency Management Performance Grant in the amount of $15,399.60 in the capital category.
Second.
Good evening.
Welcome. No, go ahead.
My name is Justin Baker. I am the Deputy Director of Emergency Management. And last November, we applied for a grant for the Indiana Department of Homeland Security. It's the Emergency Management Performance Competitive Grant. It's a different amount of salary grant that we get every year that we reimburses the county 50%. We were awarded this grant for the 15,000. And the grant will go towards electronic devices for the emergency management staff to take in the field, to do damage assessments, to do any kind of survey for after storms, to just kind of make our job more efficient. We can directly send them to Indiana Department of Homeland Security instead of just paper copy, because right now we just got paper copies. Which is good. It's always good to have paper copies, but it's not as sustainable. So I'm just requesting the additional appropriation.
Okay, great. Congratulations on the grant.
Thank you.
Are there questions from or comments from council to my left? To my right? Yes.
I was just going to offer the comment that I always am excited to hear anything that is further professionalization and support for emergency management in this county. Not a week ago, right? We went through a portion, all of the county, but a particular portion of the county had a really awful bad night. And the next morning, our folks, and early in that morning, as this is all going on, our folks are out there doing things, responding, and they have to be connected to the state. In an emergency, there is not a response that's quick enough, right? And so I think I said a few years back, I think emergency management is going to be one of those departments and functions that we're going to see change, grow. And I think things like this are awesome. So I'd always encourage that department to go after every grand dollar and whatever we might need towards that. Because again, when people want responses and relief, that stuff counts and time matters.
Well said. And any further comment or questions from council? Any public comment on this item? Then could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley.
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Decker,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. We now move to item 12 from our aviation department.
Council, I move to approve the aviation department's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 4801-0000 airport construction in the amount of $54,949.16 in the services category.
Second.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Okay, we can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me tonight. For the request for the additional appropriation in late 2022, the airport changed airport engineering consulting firms through an RFQ process. However, the firm had started some engineering work on a FAA approved airfield improvement project. So we want to pay that consultant out and make them whole before we apply for reimbursement through the FAA, because that project is still in the planning and engineering phases. So we want to make them whole for the amount of $54,949.16. We probably won't get reimbursed for that project until late this year. And we have already moved on to another consultant and carried on that project with them.
Okay. Are there any questions to my right? Questions to my left? Yes.
This contract was to replace edge lighting systems. Is that right?
Yeah, it's runway or sorry, taxiway edge lights, but that involved some preliminary engineering work, which is what this amount is only for. We haven't broke ground on this yet.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from council? Okay. I had a question about the nature of changing the consulting firms. Was that simply because one firm did one thing and the next firm does another
Oh,
thing, or is there a reason? for it?
yeah, it's a great question. There are most airports contract with an airport engineering consultant, and they're the ones who pretty much facilitate us with these FAA airfield improvement projects that we try to do every year. They do a lot of the engineering work and construction management for us. The airport had used the same consultant for approximately the last 22 years. And every 5 years, the FAA encourages airports to do an RFQ and have tryouts for new folks and see how it goes. We did an RFQ here, which wrapped up at the very beginning of this year, but the process started, I believe, in November. And we just felt it was time for some new partners and some fresh faces and some fresh ideas. So we went with Woolpert. They're one of the Indiana's biggest airport engineering consultants. And they do a lot of other civil engineering projects as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's interesting. Is there any public comment on this item? Being none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim or Munson.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. And we added item B to the agenda, so we could have that now, please.
Council, I move to approve the aviation department's request to create a new account line and to simultaneously amend the 2023 salary ordinance in Fund 1107-0000 Aviation Fund, account line 16800, temporary transitional training, 40 hours, Pat D, non-exempt for the new incoming assistant director.
Second.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.
This is part of your transition in hiring a new person, right?
That is correct. Last week, we had gone through the new streamlined council process to bring somebody in at the midpoint. So we made it to that deadline requirement. An offer was made and accepted by the candidate for the soon to be vacant assistant airport director position. And yes, it's such an important role for the airport and community with a lot of the safety aspects that are wrapped up into that position. We wanted to take advantage of the opportunity for some temporary transitional training with the incumbent and the new hire. We feel it's very important for that, as I said, for that position at the airport. And we have adequate resources in our 100s. We have, I believe, in our part-time balance, we still have, as of today, $38,000 in that line. And the amount, just the salary amount for the new hire would be approximately $5,200, not counting the additional benefits. But so the money is there. We're just asking for the appropriation, and we believe it's warranted for this role.
Great. Makes sense to me. It's why we kind of set that precedent, these lines. Are there any questions to my left? Questions to my right?
I believe this is what actually I had discussed with the airport earlier, several months ago. We started doing this with some of the other departments. Makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
to be able to use the knowledge of the person who's already been serving and be able, and so they can do the training. And it makes a lot of sense. So I'm glad they did that.
Absolutely.
And thank you for making sure it got on the agenda.
Mhm.
I just want to express our gratitude for allowing us to do this. Just echoing Marty's sentiments that you don't always get this opportunity to cross train. You don't always have an outgoing person who is always leaving on good terms or more than happy. But this person made this decision known a long time ago and is more than happy to help us out and ensure that we don't lose any institutional knowledge in this transition.
Yeah, that's great when you have that opportunity to be able to really kind of up the professionalism of the job. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz.
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Great.
Thank you for getting us on the agenda tonight.
Thank you. Have a good one. We're at item 13 now from our legal department.
Council, I move to approve resolution 2023-06, update clarifying job vacancy procedures for full-time positions and temporary transitional training needs.
Second.
Welcome, Ms. Turner King.
Hi, council. So at the last work session on March 28th, I brought to you an update to resolution 2021-18, which was a resolution that outlines the procedures for departments to fill vacancies in full-time positions. We specifically added language that once a department makes a request and that request has been approved, the vacancy would be filled pursuant to the personnel policy. After the March 28th hearing, I realized that resolution 2020-18 was not the most recent resolution on that matter. That resolution 2021-46 existed and that it added information in regarding the transitional training lines that we just dealt with. And so I think Ms. Kim can share the screen, but in essence, this is requesting to update the correct resolution 2021-46 to make the changes that we discussed last meeting, which is to clarify that requests to fill vacancies should be done so pursuant to the personnel policy. And then there was just some language in there that we also cleaned up a little bit. I think that the resolution referred to people by the wrong title. And so Ms. Shell looked at the resolution as well to help update the process to make sure that the resolution reflects what actually happens in practice.
Great, thank you. Are there questions to my right? Counselor Hawk?
I know at the last meeting, I think it was the last meeting, Councilmember McKim said, what problem is it we're trying to solve? And I wondered the same thing. But it does call into question whether or not I remember this correctly. The justice side of the county does not always have to follow this personnel policy because am I remembering that correctly? Because I know they've been put all this in salary ordinance. If you don't do X, Y, and Z, well, you're not going to get paid. And they were trying to include the election officials. And I said, whoa, you can't even do that. You can't get that out of there. You can't even do that. And so they did remove that portion because you have to pay somebody once they work. You just have to. So those are the questions I have about the whole personnel policy and who all is involved in putting it together. And if we even know what the personnel policy says. but maybe all of you have it memorized and I just don't. So, figure that out.
I do not have the personnel policy memorized, for the record.
But I think the question of who the signatories are is a good one that can easily be answered.
If the courts participate in the personnel policy, but
Personnel committee. I have a point of clarification that if legal could answer this question while you're thinking about that one. Personnel handbook is a function and domain of the county commissioners. Is that correct?
Well, so the most recent version of the personnel policy was revised and approved on March 2nd of 2022, and it's adopted by the Board of Commissioners, the Board of Judges, and the prosecuting attorney.
So they all, to kind of answer what Counselor Hawk's asking, they all kind of come together in agreement for adoption for that. So we've got commissioners, judges, prosecuting attorney, and I'm assuming sheriff falls somewhere under the, I'm not gonna answer that question, but it would be in one of those three. So everybody's covered.
I believe so.
Okay.
Your mic. As a reminder, maybe it's different now, but when there was this big push for this training that commissioners was going to say, everybody had to take it or you didn't get paid. And if it paid. Yeah, I mean, they would try, well, look at we sign off on that. It's right there on your salary ordinance. So if I'm recalling right, there were others, not in this building, but in other buildings that said, we'll decide what kind of training our employees are going to have. Nobody else is going to tell us. And so I hope that this is not, trying to change that around, because we can't tell the courts what kind of training their folks should have. Unless it's like, here's how you get out of the building if there's a tornado or something.
I don't think this is about training at all. It's really just it's really a housekeeping issue that's trying to fix something we did last meeting with respect to how to hire. I mean,
I think that actually addresses Counselor Hawk's concern at number 7, or it should.
At number 7.
It's not
up here.
It's not all about
Unfortunately.
the personnel policy. It's specifically about recruitment, selection, and hiring. It means that if we approve a vacancy to be filled, we are doing it with the expectation that the department head will follow the appropriate recruitment, selection, and hiring practices that are documented and agreed to in the personnel policy.
Yes.
Right. So it's not about everything. It's specifically about recruitment, selection, and hiring.
Does that clarify your question?
I was going to vote for it anyway. I didn't last time.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Me down here on this end. Okay. Public comment? And that was a question. So no public commenters. And could we have a roll call vote, please? Which I feel is asking a lot these days.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley. Yes. Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
No.
Motion passed 6-1.
Thank you. We are now at item 14, which is the approval of summary minutes.
Council, I move to approve the summary minutes of September 13, 2022, regular session and budget work session number 3, September 14, 2022, budget work session number 4, and March 14, 2023, regular session.
Second.
Are there any changes, corrections, questions, edits, comments from council? Seeing none, I'll ask if there's any public comment on our minutes, just in case. Seeing none there. Do we need a roll call? Voice vote, got it. All in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimous. It is time for council comments. So if you have anything further to say and share with us, now is your time. Please let me know. Counselor Hawk.
Yes, as many of you already know, if your phone is ringing, some of the tax bills are already out. Evidently, they weren't all mailed out the same day. And I've been trying to, it's really wonderful. You can just go to the treasurer's page and right there, you just click it on and you can just look up the address and and look at that tax bill and talk with the concerned citizen. They're looking at the bill and I'm looking at the bill. We can go line by line. And what we can see is it's not the county that raised our rates so much, and although they get the bill from us, so they think we did it. But the part that was raised so much was, and this one particular instance, I was talking with this one individual, send him information, his tax bill went up $500 for the school referendum. Now, we didn't do that. And the reason why it went up so much with his higher assessed value is, if I understand correctly, the referendum language was tied to a rate and not to a levy. So if they use that rate times a much, much higher assessed value, that referendum we're going to bring in a windfall of dollars into the school. I hope they'll use it to give the teachers a raise because they need it. My daughter's a teacher. We've been looking at the salaries, and the elementary school system can really use the money. If they're going to get that kind of money, help the teachers out. But okay, so that went out, but also the assessor has ordered all of the Form 11s to be printed off. And so we'll be getting those toward the end of the month. Now that Form 11 is your assessed value, but it isn't for your taxes you're paying this year. But you only have so many days to respond to the assessor. Once you have received that, if you believe there's some error on there, you must respond to get that changed and, at least talk to them to see if there's a change to be made. But also the people who own farm ground, they all got, at least a great number of them, I guess they all got the paperwork to fill out saying whether or not that ground was being used for agriculture purposes or some other way. And it's essential to fill that out. If you're, one of the people I talked with, they're using their farm ground, letting their neighbor use it for their cows and keeps the weeds down and whatever. And, it's good for the cows. So all he had to do was he was using it for grazing of the cows. So he's good to go. So just make sure that you get something from the county, that you get it filled out and get it sent back.
Thank you. It's a good reminder. Counselor McKim. What? Oh, of course. Yeah.
So I don't see your microphone.
Public wants to hear you.
We can hear you, but everybody needs to hear you.
I want to address what Marty said because it's very important. And it's not just the schools. Anytime your assessed value goes up, any rate controlled fund is just multiplied times that. Everything else that's in the max levy, the funding formula, when the AVs go up, the rate goes down. if the budget stays like within 4%, 5%. I mean, it can only grow by the growth quotient. However, if you have a high assessed value and you have rate controlled funds, it's just a straight multiplication. So if anybody has any questions on that, that's watching this, because what Marty said is absolutely true. Give me a call. You can call my cell phone number, call my office. I'll be happy to work through your tax bill with you and explain it to you.
Thank you.
It could,
Go ahead.
well, the other thing that happens is this, because you're that cap can't pay any more than 1% of your assessed value. Then you don't pay it, nobody else has to pay it. Well, in this past year, the person I was speaking with had a higher circuit breaker credit because the difference was so much different. But this year, because his assessed value is so much higher, and he has, it could go up to as much as the 1%. It's a lot higher amount. So his circuit breaker credit on this expensive home was not as much by like a couple $100 as it was the past year. So it looks like as if it's benefiting people with very expensive homes. Whatever. Just say it.
Interesting.
If I don't have one, I don't know.
Yes, Counselor McKim.
So this is actually just to follow up on Councilor Hawk's first comment with respect to the increases the taxpayers are seeing. And so I've just actually, right before the meeting, I just pulled out the levy numbers for 2022 versus 23 on the budget order. Because of course, what ultimately, I mean, if what you're talking about, if the question you're trying to answer is, did government see a windfall because of the increased assessed values? We have to look at that at unit by unit. And so if I look, for example, at the county's total tax levy went up 7.1% from 2022 to 2023, about $2.3 million, went up to 7.1%. If you look at where those changes come from, it's not going to be any surprise. Didn't come from the general fund or any of the frozen levy, because that only increased by 5% by the maximum levy growth quotient. Didn't come from debt because that's a smaller increase. It came from the Major Bridge Fund and the Cumulative Capital Development Fund, which are those rate controlled funds. But still, ultimately, it only added up to about just over a 7% increase for our total levy. You look at the city, kind of do the same calculation, 8.9% increase. So the city's total revenue, total levy increased by almost 9%. And I haven't had a time to actually look at which funds. But then MCCSC, that increased by almost 30%, their total levy. So indeed, that is exactly where when taxpayers are asking where their money went, why it went up so much, it did go to the schools. And I agree. I hope the teachers are getting higher salaries because of that. We all know it didn't come from the library because the library had its zero. Yeah.
Oh. Thank you. Actually, that's both of you, have a way of clarifying things that's very helpful. Thank you. Any other council comments? Yes, Councilor Crossley.
I know sometimes I come with doomsday quotes. That is not happening tonight. I know it's shocking, right? It's a nice day, so we all should just go outside and enjoy the weather. But until we can do that, I just figure along with the nice day goes along with some sentiments. And I was doing some doomsday scrolling on the Facebook, and I saw that one of our very own, Trent Deckard, was the winner of the 2023 Outstanding Graduate Program Alumni of the Year. So that's awesome. Congratulations, Councilor Deckard. We are also in election cycle. And so I hope that all members of the public, even if you are not in city wide, or if you're not in the city and you're not able to vote in the city, there is some very interesting candidate forums that are happening, and we just encourage all public to pay attention because whether or not, even if you are not involved or able to vote within the city, what the city does ultimately has an impact of what we do here in the county, as we discuss with convention center, food and beverage tax, all the hot topics that are happening is something to be involved in. And Councilor Iverson and I went to the Chamber of Commerce forum yesterday, and it was discussed that we're projected to have an 8% turnout of citywide elections.
Yeah.
That's what was quoted. And that's a really low number. So we need to do all that we can to educate ourselves of our candidates, and best of luck to all candidates, but please turn out, show up, and try to, or not try, go vote if you are eligible to vote in citywide elections. And last but not least, something that is very near and dear to my heart. I have my pink bracelet on, my pink and green bracelet on, and I can see some of our members here on our Zoom. If you don't know, now you know. I am a proud member of the Kappa Tau Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, where we are, one of our slogans and one of our missions is to be of service to all mankind. And I definitely do that in my role as counselor and being a public servant in various aspects of our community. And yesterday, our charter, or chapter, had 47 years ago yesterday. We were founded here. Our chapter was founded here. And we have amazing women that are doing amazing things in our county and beyond. So I just wanted to recognize our chapter and to say happy 47th anniversary and many, many more to come.
Thanks. Counselor Iverson.
Thank you, Madam President. Last time I did council comments, I think I brought a box of Girl Scout cookies and talked about it as an economic indicator. And tonight I want to talk about March Madness as an economic indicator. Now, I'm not talking about basketball. I'm talking about the rush in March for parents to sign their kids up for summer care for perennially limited slots. There's a lot of parents in this room and online who went through this, staying up and clicking on slots late at night. And so today I wanted to bring not only that stress to bear, but some financial numbers as well. My wife and I sat down and calculated that for this summer, we are going to be spending $600 per month per child on summer care. Now, we are fortunate enough to have grandparents in town, so that number could easily double. I wanted to put that into some perspective. The median income in Monroe County in 2021 dollars per month is $4,576. That means that if you are paying what the Iverson household is paying in summer costs, that about 13% of your income is going towards summer childcare. That is a pretty big burden, and that's only for the medium income. So if you're making less than medium income, that number goes up. Moreover, if you have more than one child, that percentage goes up. So I want to take the time to congratulate this body on making sure that ARPA funding is available for childcare, but also understanding that pre-K and those types of childcare, there's a lot more out there. There's a lot of need, and there's a lot of parents who simply cannot afford summer care. And I wanted to raise that issue on this bright and sunny April day. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Nope. All right, then we are adjourned. Thank you.
Kate, I just received a